If you're struggling to get arpeggios to sound good, try this instead. Hi guys, Ollie here. So today I thought I'd talk about Polychord Arpeggios. So my students are often telling me that they feel kind of stuck getting arpeggios into their playing in an interesting or musical way. Now I think that's because often they can get stuck, or one can get stuck, playing the specific arpeggio over its corresponding chord. By that I mean, let's say E minor as a chord. The arpeggio that would fit that would be an E minor arpeggio. But just using that arpeggio can be a little bit bland. What we can do instead is use all the arpeggio shapes and types that we know and repurpose them to create different colors and different sounds over that chord. And that is the polychord concept. Let me break this down. Basically, the concept of polychords comes from a harmony perspective of combining two chords to create one larger chord for different colors and extensions. This works very nicely on piano, as we can hold a triad in our left hand and a different triad in our right hand. Say C major in the left hand and G major in the right hand. And that will give us a more complex C chord, suggesting a C major 9 color. The symbol for these chords looks like this, and that's visually dictating the order of pitch. So we have C major at the bottom of the chord and G major on top. Playing these chords on guitar, however, is a little bit tricky. But what I want to show you today is not how to play the chord shapes, but how to adapt this concept to apply it to single note lines and arpeggios. First of all, I just want to quickly explain how you can borrow a triad arpeggio and put it on top of a different chord for a different color. Then I'm going to move on to polychord arpeggio shapes, which is what I really want to show you. So to quickly outline this concept, let's say we had a C major 7 chord. Over the top of that, rather than playing C major 7 or C major arpeggio, I could highlight that major 7 sound by borrowing an arpeggio from a different chord. So on top of that C major 7 chord, I could play E minor arpeggio. And that would give me the major 7 quality of that chord. It would give me the 3 of C, the 5 of C, the 7 of C, the 3 of C, the 5 of C, and the 7 of C, etc. I have lots more examples of this in the accompanying lesson PDF that's linked below in the description. But the way I really find this most useful and most musical is learning to combine these arpeggios. Let me show you that in detail now. So the way that I really got this polychord sound into my own playing was learning to combine them as larger arpeggio shapes. So if we think of the chord on the bottom of the polychord as the bass triad and the one on top as the extensions triad, the way that I got this into my own playing was learning to play shapes that played up the bass triad into the extensions triad. This way you get an arpeggio shape that goes up the chord tones and then opens out into the extensions as you go up the shape. So for example, I could play C into G. All I then have to do is carry on the shape to give myself one big full arpeggio shape to play this sound in. So to get you started, here's some of my favorites. Let's go major first. I like to use the first 3 chord tones of my bass triad and then move into the extensions triad after that. So that would be the 1, the 3 and the 5 of my bass chord, and then I'll move into the extensions chord after. This isn't a set rule, but it's just a nice place to start. We have the root at the bottom. It just gives us a good basis to start building shapes from. So say we have a C major chord as our starting point. What we're going to do is play the root 3-5 of our bass triad. That's going to be C, E and G. And then I'm going to play into first inversion G triad. That's going to be B, D G on top. So in relation to C, that gives us the root, the 3, the 5 of C, the 7, the 9 of C, and the 5 of C. What I like to do is carry on the arpeggio of the second chord, so the G in this case, so I have an 8-note arpeggio shape which I can play across the strings. So that's going to be root 3, 5, 7, 9, 5, 7, 9. Root 3, 5, 7, 9, 7, 9. That gives us a nice 8-note arpeggio shape across the strings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As a formula for this sound over a major chord, you could think of this as major triad from a fifth away, or 5 on 1. Let me show you how it sounds. Okay, now let's go for a major 6 kind of quality. We're going to use the same bass triad again, so that's C, E, G, root position C. This time we're going to play into an A minor triad in root position. That's going to be A, C, and E. Now, the A, C, and E notes in relation to C would give us, if we play from the bass triad, root 3, 5, then 6, root 3. Okay? What I'm going to do again is continue that last arpeggio across the strings to give us an 8-note shape. That would be root 3, 5, 6, root 3, 6, root. So we get this sound. A nice major 6 quality. And the formula for this you can think of as minor triad from the 6 or 6 minor on 1. And it sounds like this. Okay, now we can kind of go a little bit modal. Let's try hitting a dominant 7 kind of quality by suggesting a C9 chord. This kind of gives us a Mixolydian type feel to our lines. Okay, so same root position bass triad of C, E, G. This time we're going to play into first inversion G minor triad. That's going to be B flat, D, and G. Now, in relation to C major, that gives us the root, the 3, the 5, the flat 7, that's that dominant sound, the 9, and the 5. Okay? Again, I'm going to extend this to make an 8-note arpeggio that goes across all the strings, and that should sound a little bit like this. You can think of this one as minor triad from the 5th, or 5 minor on 1. Okay, so I love this one. For a Lydian type sound, or major 7 sharp 11, we can use that same bass triad again. That's going to be C, E, G, that root position C. This time we're going to play into root position B minor. That's B, D, and F sharp. Now, in relation to C, that gives us the root, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 9, and the sharp 11. Again, I'm going to carry on that extensions triad so I get this nice 8-note pattern across the strings. That gives me root 3, 5, 7, 9, sharp 11, 7, and 9 on top. And that sounds like this. The formula for this one is thinking minor triad from the 7 or 7 minor on 1. Okay, lastly for the majors, here's a nice functional one. What we're going to be doing is implying a dominant 7 flat 9 sound by using a polychord approach. So bass triad of root position C again, C, E, G, this time into a fully diminished 7 arpeggio built off of the flat 7 of that C. So that's going to be B flat, D flat, E, and G. So that would give us in relation to C, root 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9, 3, 5. I could extend it by 1 note to give us a full 8-note arpeggio. That'd be the flat 7 again. Root 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9, 3, 5, flat 7. And that one sounds a little bit like this. So that one we could think of as diminished 7 arpeggio from the flat 7, or flat 7, diminished 7 on 1. Okay, so next, here's some of my favorite minor polychord arpeggios. get stuck into some minor polychord arpeggios. First of all, let's look at a beautiful minor 9 kind of quality to a polychord. That's going to be 5 minor on 1 minor. Now for this we're going to use a bass triad of C again, but this time it's C minor. So we're going to have C, E flat and G, root 3 5 into first inversion G minor. That's going to be B flat, D and G on top. So that gives us, in relation to C minor, root flat 3 5, flat 7 9 5. And again I'm going to continue the arpeggio like I did with the majors across the strings to give us an 8-note arpeggio by playing the extensions arpeggio and continuing it. So it's going to be root flat 3 5, flat 7 9 5, flat 7 9. So that gives us this kind of sound. Okay, so you can think of this over a minor chord as minor triad from the 5, or 5 minor on 1 minor. Okay, so here's a really cool open sounding minor 11 polychord arpeggio. To hit this, our bass triad is going to be C minor again, C, E flat and G, and then we're going to play into B flat major in root position. That's going to be B flat, D and F. That gives us, in relation to C minor, root flat 3 5, 7 9 11. Again, carrying on the extension of the extension triad, that would be flat 7 and a 9 on top. Root flat 3 5, 7 9 11, flat 7 9, and that sounds like this. You can think of that one on a minor chord as major triad from the flat 7 or flat 7 major on 1 minor. Okay, now onto some modal sounds. For a Dorian mode sound, we can use D minor on C minor. We can use that root position C minor again, C, E flat, G. This time we're going to blend that into second inversion D minor. So that's going to be A, D, and an F on top. So we get C, E flat, G, A, D, F. So in relation to C minor, those notes give us the root, the flat 3, the 5, the 6, that's the kind of important Dorian sound here, the 9 and the 11. Again, we can take that across all the strings by extending the second arpeggio shape to get a full 8-note arpeggio shape. And over C minor, that will sound like... We can think of the formula on a minor chord for this one as being minor triad on the 2, or 2 minor on 1 minor. One last arpeggio for you to try. This one is going to give you a minor major 9 kind of quality. To hit this, we're going to combine C minor with G major. This works really nicely as the 1 chord in melodic minor. Again, root position C minor triad, root flat 3 5. Then I'm going to play into first inversion G major. So that's going to be B, D, and G on top. In relation to C minor, that gives us 1, flat 3, 5, major 7, 9, and a 5. If we continue that arpeggio, we get another 7 and another 9 on top if we continue the G. And over C minor, that's going to sound like this. Okay, there's a bunch of examples to get you started, but if you really want to delve into this in detail, what you can start to do is invert the bass chord that you're playing into the extension chord. So rather than, say, C major in root position, we could have C major in first inversion and then play into an extension chord above that. That's going to give you a slightly different sound again. If you know all your cage kind of concepts up and down the neck, this will all start to tie into that and it can be really useful going forwards. I won't show you all those inversions now as we'll be here all day, but if you want access to them, you can find them in the accompanying lesson PDF that is linked in the description below on my website. Okay, so let's expand on this idea. To take it one step further, rather than thinking of triads in your polychord, we could potentially think of a triad into a 7th chord or something like that. For example, I could take a bass triad of C and then play into an extensions chord of G major 7. That's going to give us another quality. This one happens to be C major 7 sharp 11, or a kind of Lydian sound. I'll show you that. That's going to be root 3 5 bass triad again. This time we're going to play into G major first inversion, so that would be 3 5 7 root of G major. Against C, that would give us C, E, G, B, D, F sharp, and G. And against C, that gives us root 3, 5, 7, 9, sharp 11, 5. Again, I can carry on the arpeggio, play another 7 of the C there to finish off the 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it sounds like this. I could even take it one step further and play the 9 of the C on the top, so it's just an extension of that G triad again. Okay, Polychord Superimposition. So really that's just a fancy name that I just came up with for something that's quite simple really. One thing I really like to do is use polychords like we've just been talking about, but superimpose them on top of other chords to actually give us rootless versions or rootless arpeggio versions of those chords. Now this isn't a concept that I've invented, it's just one that I've explored a lot. It's something that I first found when I was transcribing Robben Ford, his solo on Peace on My Mind, the live version I think it was. In particular, he uses this really nicely. Over a minor chord, he's actually using some of these major polychord sounds. Over D minor, there's a really nice line he plays which goes like this. And what he's doing there, we'll ignore this low E to F. We're going to start from this E to F. First of all, we're going to ignore that E. We're going to play this F and think of that in relation to D. He's playing root position, F triad, into first inversion C. That's the 5 on 1 major idea we talked about right back at the beginning of this lesson. Now that is F, A, C into E, G and C. But against D minor, this actually gives us the flat 3 of D minor, the 5, the flat 7, the 9, the 11, and then the flat 7 again. He actually plays into it from an E note. So that kind of gives us the 9 of D minor, or you can think of that as almost like F major 7 to start with, just from the 7. It gives us 9, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 9, 11, and then flat 7 on top. And then he kind of slides from the tonic, that's D, into the 9, and back down to that flat 7. That works really nicely over this D minor, and it's kind of like he's playing a really nice D minor 11 arpeggio. Yet again, we could take that a step further. We could use the bass triad into 7th chord approach we talked about a second ago. Rather than just over this D minor 7 playing F into C, we could play F into C major 7. That will give us this kind of sound. It's going to give us a Dorian quality to our line. Now that's because the 7th of C gives us a B, which in relation to D is the 6th, and that kind of gives us this Dorian feeling to it. So we get, if we start from the F, flat 3 of D, 5, flat 7, 9, 11, 13. That gives us that Dorian quality. And then flat 7 again. We get, if we go all the way from that D root, that's going to be 9, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 9, 11, 13, and then the flat 7 on top. And that one sounds like this. Okay, so superimposing one polychord on top of another chord. Of course, there's various examples of this that you can mess around with, but get experimenting. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope it's given you some good ideas to explore. As I said before, it's just something that for me really opened up a different way of looking at arpeggios. Hopefully you'll find it useful too. If you did enjoy the concept though, you can find a detailed breakdown of all of this in the attached lesson PDF. That's linked in the description below. That has detailed breakdowns of all the shapes, all the arpeggio inversions, and some MP3 examples and use cases as well. So go check that out. If you like the backing tracks you've been hearing, you can find them on my website as well, and they are linked in the description below. If you did enjoy the video, it's really helpful to me if you hit like, subscribe, and also if you want, you can hit the bell icon to stay up to date. I'm going to be releasing a lot more video content this year, so stay tuned. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.